That's the final whistle. It's finished. West Ham United 1, Burnley 0. West Ham up into the top 8 in the Premier League, and Rio have recorded a 4th consecutive clean sheet. One for the record books there. As Rio said earlier in the match, we can't find one since 1985, when West Ham kept that many clean consecutive sheets. That being a 5-game run between November and December 1985 in that incredible season, the boys of 86, of course. Final score here, West Ham 1, Burnley 0. The only goal of the game coming in the 9th minute from Michail Antonio, the TV broadcaster's man of the match. He's coming in at the far post to convert a cross from Pablo Fornals that gives West Ham all 3 points in a very, very hard-fought contest. Not particularly entertaining for most parts, although lots of half chances coming in the last 15 or 20 minutes. I'm going to turn to the team now for their instant response to what we've seen over the course of the last 94 minutes. Pinky, let's begin with you, sir, if we can. West Ham 1. Burnley 0. West Ham back up into the top 8 of the Premier League.
A good result. I mean, let's not mince the words here. Not many teams roll over Sean Dyche teams. And you'll always have to battle for whatever you get against Burnley, and we did that today. I thought we also showed the better quality of the two sides, and we did enough hard work, enough intelligent play to actually secure the points. Impressive at the back. I think, Craig Dawson again, I think he made one error today, which was one slightly misdirected header. And Angelo Ogbonna, again, very, very tidy, and even sufficiently confident to do a little bit in the opposition's half as well. So, we're playing okay, and today is a game that, we all said at the start, there's a goal in it, really. It was always going to be a battle. We've come out on top, and what I can tell you is that the Burnley supporters, the love affair with Dyche is over. They really are getting stuck into him in terms of, we don't start playing to the last quarter of an hour. We're not attack-minded enough. All those danger signs that a club that is punching miles above its weight in the top flight. Remember where you heard it first. Within the year, Burnley will be heading towards the Championship. No question. Because there they are now, 17th spot, and their supporters think they should be playing, total football. I don't think so. But good for us today. A win. Ben Rama played well, I thought. Rice did what Rice does, as does Souček. We've got quite a tidy little team now. We are short a striker in the squad, for sure. But today, Antonio did enough to get the goal and enough to make sure that we held onto the ball up the pitch. And that was something that Sebastian Heller was simply incapable of. So I'll take the win and be grateful for it.
Thank you, Pinky. Of course, that win, as I said, taking West Ham up into 8th. Where we are now just 3 points off of the 4th place, which is tremendous, really, going into the new year. And credit to David Moyes and everyone in his limited size squad, as we pointed out several times in recent weeks and months. Pinky, man of the match shout for you. Would you go along with Michail Antonio?
Yeah, I mean, for me, not for the goal. I mean, goals are always important, obviously. But I thought his all-round play, he does things for us that Seb Haller couldn't, and the challenge for David Moyes is finding another Michail Antonio on a shoestring, because, I think the chairman's making it even more obvious than usual. There isn't any money to spend unless he fancies a player, in which case he suddenly finds a lot of money. But, we're looking at this now. We're halfway through the transfer window. And what we're looking at is, well, it's Antonio or nobody, in the starting lineup. And is that really where the team that's sitting 8th in the Premier League should be? Does any other manager have that kind of restricted option? So today, Antonio, for me, work rate, contribution to the team. Yeah, I'd give him man of the match. Just.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you. Rio, West Ham 1, Burnley 0, another 3 points for the Hammers. What's your initial assessment of what you've seen there in the last 94 minutes?
It wasn't pretty at times, especially that last 25 minutes where we failed to keep hold of the ball in the key areas when we did get the chance. The substitutions from either side changed the dynamics of the game. It made heavy weather at the end, but how many times over the last few years have we seen Sean Dyche's team grind out results and get the victory against us and nullified us where we couldn't score? The early goal obviously counted hugely, and it allowed a bit more space in the game, which you normally wouldn't get. And when that style of play was being implemented by both sides, we were by far the better side. It's a grand out win. It's a game that quite often we would have lost and rolled over against a side like that. But it's just going to show that we haven't got that soft underbelly anymore. We've got a bit of resoluteness about us. We've got a work rate and a desire to win, which we haven't seen very often in West Ham sides down the years. As I said, it's not exactly pretty at times, but with a threadbare squad, we're 8th from the table. And is it 18 games in? It's great to see, isn't it? It's not pretty, but at the moment it's effective. And I'm sure with a little bit of investment, please, and a bit of good fortune, a bit more style will come into our play. But at the moment, Moyes is doing an absolutely fantastic job with the tools at his disposal. We're getting a tune out of some really good players here. The underrated Craig Dawson was written off before ball was kicked this season.
Yeah.
A midfield partnership of Rice and Chusek, which doesn't offer a lot in terms of attacking flair at times, but does a resolute job. Mikel Antonio, when he's in the side, he makes a huge difference. He allows the three behind him to play a bit more. He holds the ball up. He brings them into play. And we're a work in progress. I think, as I said, if we can get a bit more investment, that coaching setup can afford to let this team flourish in the future. We need to kind of augment certain key areas. The defence needs to do a little bit of work still, particularly left back, because obviously Aaron's not got long left in him. The spine of our team is aging a little bit. But if we can support this, we're a team on the up. We're doing well on the shoestring budget with very few players.
Okay, excellent. Good stuff. Thank you. Gnome is, I presume, listening to Mikel Antonio's comments.
Come back to me.
So we'll come back to Gnome in just a minute. But what I did want to ask, Rio, is that we had a split forum, didn't we, after that game against Everton? Went up there, a good 3 points. Some people really unhappy about the fashion, the style of West Ham's football. And I just wonder whether, having seen a pretty similar sort of game this afternoon against a Burnley side who, let's be honest, aren't one of the best in the Premier League, and whether or not we're likely to see a little bit of a reoccurrence of that thread, or that re-emerging, in the next day or two. What do you think about that?
Personally, I hope I don't see that thread re-emerge for personal reasons. But there's a couple of comments being made already on the match thread. Bobby Morlower has put, "So bored as I have been for many of our games this season. Yes, 3 points are great. However, I am really bored of watching us. So glad I don't have to track across Olympic Park every weekend and watch this dross. 3 points are great, but at what cost?" Muffet from Space has put, "Professionals' performance was, and nice to see get 3 points off third place. Let's not forget we're owned by a bunch of absolute bleep." People are still not happy with the substance. So with the style, the substance is there, but the style still isn't pleasing to some people. But I said, it's a work in progress. We've got very little at our disposal in terms of squad investment, playing staff, Last season, under Pellegrini, when we had all the money invested and the flair on the pitch, we were soft. We couldn't have ground out a performance like that, You've got to balance it out, At the moment, we can't play the full champagne football at the time. We can do it. We saw spells of this game today where we could flourish in an attacking sense. But we need that defensive resoluteness to build upon, and we're showing that, and I'm quite glad we are.
Is this perhaps, Rio, a little bit of Kirbishley syndrome creeping back into the fan base of, you know, we're comfortably mid-table now. We're not, I don't think, you know, we'd have to have an astonishing collapse, wouldn't we, for relegation to be an issue this season. A fan sort of perhaps getting, you know, maybe expecting a little bit too much.
I think people look at our position in the table and expect us to be playing football of a style that we used to see in the 80s and the 70s, with players of attacking flair, because we have got some very stylish footballers in our side. The likes of Ben Rama can light up a game. Lanzini, when he's on form and fit, he can potentially light up a game. Pablo Fornals is not only capable of industrial running and work rate for the team, but his ability on the ball is second to none at times. You know, we have the players at our disposal to be able to create an attack at will and cause teams a lot of problems. But the way we set up, it's not particularly pretty, but it's effective. And I think people are not. I think it's that the whole Sky generation thing, isn't it? You know, you want instant success. You see teams like Manchester City and Liverpool come out and attack teams at will, but people forget they're augmented by years of Champions League's money. That's without the ownership throwing billions of pounds at them. You know, we're not at that position. We're not fortunate to be in that situation where our owners, and the manager in charge can get a tune out of them kind of players. We haven't. We've got a team which, if it played for Manchester City, their support would probably laugh and say, "What the hell we got here?" But we're not far behind them. You know?
Well,
and we're
we're certainly not far behind them as far as the table is concerned. As I said, you know, West Ham just 3 points off of fourth place at the moment, but still clearly, as Rio pointing out, a lot of supporters still unhappy with the standard of football that they're seeing. Hence, really, why I sort of brought the Kirbishley issue, you know, up, sort of referring to that period when we seemed to sit in mid-table for months and months on end, and people sort of complained of being utterly bored of not having a relegation battle, you know, to fight, or you know, a European challenge. Rio, you were going to come back in there, I think.
Yeah, just go back to the Kirbishley thing.
Yeah.
After it, when he was dismissed, we just won 2 games 4-0 on the bounce.
Yeah.
So it's a really weird thing. I mean, I didn't enjoy the football under Adam Kirbishley. In hindsight, probably I was a little bit harsh. But when the trigger did come, it was after 2-0, 4-0 victories on the bounce. And, you know, people were delighted when he got the sack.
Yes. A long time ago, it seems now, of course. I'm trying to think who the catalyst was. It George McCartney's departure that ultimately made him decide to walk? I think it was McCartney, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But
what a hill to die on. What a hill to die on, George McCartney. You know, I mean, you know, you can see Koeman walking out of the Camp Nou if Messi's sold. You know, you can see that's the reason why you might want to quit. George McCartney. Yeah, there you go. Your managerial career ends because you've taken a stand on George McCartney.
And it did, didn't it? That was his last job in management. Yeah, quite a lucrative career in punditry since. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Pinky. That was it. Never employed again. Never employed in gainful management. Rio, before I go over to Gnome, who's bursting with things to say about the game, and if you can remember what Michael Antonio had to say, who's your man of the match, buddy?
I know. They always say that Amazon picked the lazy choice in Mikel Antonio.
Yeah,
I'm going to pick the lazier one, Declan Rice, who again puts in a performance of just sheer class at either end of the pitch.
Come back to me later. Moise is on.
We're going to defer Gnome's thoughts on the match and Michael Antonio, and now the manager David Moyes, because he's speaking to the Amazon Prime team right now. So, Gnome, I hope you're keeping notes, because you've got lots to comment on briefly. Pinky, let me come back to you really on that issue. You know, as we said, a lot of people still unhappy, even though West Ham we're in with a really good shout of Europe. Let's be honest, and who knows? We're on the cusp of the Champions League places. I mean, I don't think any of us realistically think that we're going to be challenging for those positions come the end of the season. But you never know. It is, as we've said all along, a very, very strange season. But what's your view on that whole issue of the standard of football, the quality of football? The aesthetic side of what we're seeing out there. It's perfunctory. The points are being added. We're climbing the table still. But as Rio said, a lot of people, Bobby Moore, lower, Gurley, I think it was, who said she was still quite unhappy with what she's seeing. Bored of watching us, I think was the quote that Rio read out. Do you go along with that, or do you think that's a little bit harsh on Moyes?
I think it's a bit harsh. I think there's an element of, some people have tarred David Moyes with the Allardyce brush from day one, and they don't want to shift their position. But I think what we saw today was a clear distinction between two teams. Sean Dyche today set up to try and keep it tight, not go forward, and with a view to hopefully nicking something at the end. I don't think that's what David Moyes did today. So I think I could see the difference between the two approaches from the two different managers today. I think where we have got an issue, and I touched on it in the commentary, is that inability of maybe we need more passing from Rice or Souček, and in particular Souček. Rice had touched on that, he's got a good left and right foot. But Souček, we haven't got the passing ability from. And I think as much as anything, that kind of stifles us a little bit. We touched earlier on Ben Rama's decision making, and where he perhaps should have released the ball a bit quicker on one or two occasions. So I don't think you can necessarily pin this on the manager, is the point I'm making. He's got a limited squad. He's done it with relatively limited funds. Our starting 11 today is about £100 million, which in today's market doesn't get you very much. When Man United have done 75 million quid on Harry Maguire. Yeah. So to have that kind of budget restraint and actually depth of squad restraint, you're not going to be playing champagne football. I mean, we need to get real here. We have got one striker at the club, and he's a make-do and mend striker. What exactly are people expecting David Moyes to do with the players available that he's not? I'd like to know that, because what's he supposed to be doing that he's not with the players that he's got? Maybe we should start a thread of it. What should he do that he isn't with the players available? Yes. That's the key thing that the supporters, I think, need to bear in mind here. And for that, we keep going back to the chairman and the previous manager. We've just taken a massive financial hit on Seb Haller, because we had to shift him ultimately. Are we ever going to get any money back on Yarmolenko? I would doubt it when he steps out. Fornall's the one player that Pellegrini signed that's probably appreciating in value, thankfully. But David Moyes is doing okay here. The football, it's okay. You take it for what it is, based on who he's got and what he's got. And all I'll say, if people think we're bad to watch now, they'd better pray we don't sell Declan Rice anytime soon. Because would you trust the chairman to replace him with better quality players? I wouldn't.
I'm not sure it would be possible.
We might be looking back on this part of this season as if only we could be as good as we were then, in the not too distant future. So I think people are being a touch harsh. That's just a view.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I raised the Kirbishley comparison. The fact that we were going along quite nicely that season, but a lot of people were seemingly unhappy with. I think we always end a season with some kind of drama, don't we? Generally at West Ham, whether it's a relegation battle or a European, it's rare, isn't it, that we go into the last half a dozen games and there's nothing to play for. So I don't know if that comes into.
We're on track for 60 points this season.
Yeah.
Okay. And when was the last time at this stage of the season we had a positive goal difference?
Yeah.
When was the last time at this stage of a season assuming Manchester United beat Liverpool tomorrow, will, with the same number of games played, will be 4 points behind last season's champions. I just think sometimes that I'd love to have a Bruno Fernandes in our starting lineup. Who wouldn't?
Yeah.
Who wouldn't? Yeah. Sure, I'd love to be watching, a front three like Liverpool can put on the field every single week. Who wouldn't? But we haven't got the money. And I think what David Moyes has done here is build a competitive team with what he's got. And it's a case of sometimes you've got to compete with what you've got.
Yeah.
Dream about what you haven't got. And it's as simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good point. Very good point. Well, I'm sure it's a conversation that will run and run. That's that balance between points and performance. But as we can see, it's already the KUMB.com forum and the match thread in particular. It's already an issue, as Rio has pointed out. I'm going to come to Gnome now, who's been waiting very patiently for his opportunity to offer his thoughts and reflections on the game that passed this afternoon. West Ham, of course, beating Burnley 1-0 to rise to 8th in the Premier League and just 3 points away from that Champions League 4th place. Gnome has also been keeping an eye on what Michail Antonio had to say, the match winner, and also what David Moyes has had to say. Quite a lengthy interview there from David Moyes. But Gnome, let's begin by looking at your thoughts on what you saw this afternoon. So let's have a begin this section by your review of what you saw today.
I thought we were worth the win. I thought we were the better side. The kitchen sink was thrown at us by Burnley last 20 minutes or so. Yeah, but when you look at it, we didn't fold, and I think Pinky may have referred to this earlier on. Obviously, I've been watching other stuff for the last few minutes, but the fact is that Fabianski, I don't think really had a proper save that tested him to make.
Yeah,
that's a testament to the fact, partly that Burnley were a little bit one-dimensional in the way they were playing. They were just kind of hoiking it in. Yeah, we were inviting the pressure on because we're defending deep. But truth is that last year or so, we've got better at dealing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That would have been the sort of game that would have caved in and lost points on last year. But Bonner and Dawson are beginnings there of a fine partnership.
Yeah.
What I would say is that when we did catch, if you look at the way we counted, it wasn't just, although Antonio was obviously the outball for a lot of what we did, and he did very well there. There were a number of occasions where Declan Rice would intercept both halves, not just when we were under the cosh, and play that diagonal ball over to our right.
Yeah.
Where we had Bowen, we had Leitha Yarmolenko, and that sort of more incisive and decent pass. There was one glorious pass that was 30, 40 yards in the air, and I think it was to Bowen where Bowen cut in, and I think he delayed the shot in the end. But and it's very easy. We've said a lot of, when I was listening earlier on. I've heard a lot of Souček and Rice is not the most creative of midfields. Well, I think you're doing Declan in particular a bit of a disservice there because yes, the game is based on breaking up those attacks, and he does that superbly. But he also uses the ball very, very well. Yeah. And a lot of what happens when we play on the counter comes from an initial ball, be it the 40-yard perler that we're just talking about, or maybe just a short one, 5-6 yards, but somebody can run onto. And we're worth the 3 points. I mean, I'm sure Dyche will come on later and say that we're not. What did Antonio and Moyes have to say about it? Well, I've got a bit of exclusive news that anybody been watching Amazon will probably know already, but I can explain the goal celebration. So anybody's been watching us rather than Amazon. He was playing some sort of video game with Declan Rice during the week. And the backstroke thing was the forfeit that the loser of the video game had to do if they scored.
Okay.
So there you go. That was the result of a bet he had with Declan Rice. So very happy to be scoring, very happy to be back. That was his 400th career professional match, by the way. So to score in it, obviously a nice landmark. David Moyes, the interview was lengthy, although there were times when it was, for obvious reasons, as we'll find out in a second, that he was a little bit guarded in what he was saying. But he started off by saying that he was a little bit disappointed that we didn't take the game to them a bit more in the second half, which I think is a little bit harsh on us to a certain degree, because Burnley were piling it forward and launching it. But he did say that when you get games like that, you have to deal with crosses. You know what it's going to be like. So they're now showing now that we dealt with crosses. They're just showing one or two of the ones that we didn't deal with particularly well. But by and large, we did. And just a couple of points I'm noting in case I forget. He was asked about a new striker.
Yes, he was.
Lad Deer at Ren was particularly mentioned. He didn't comment at all on Ren, on the Ren deal, rather Deer deal. But he said he was asked what sort of striker he'd like, and he said, well, one who scores goals, of course, would be
always helps.
Highlight. But somebody. What he described was effectively perhaps a slightly younger and maybe less hamstring prone Antonio, somebody who can run in behind the channels. And that sort of thing. So, and somebody with a bit of pace. So those are his criteria. So it's a difficult window. There's not many players around, and he said the finances have been shot in a lot of places by COVID. So
how did you read that? No, did you just coming back to that specific point? Did you sort of take that as a bit of an excuse for mentioning COVID, because we know we've got money, or should have money in the bank. The wage bill has been reduced hugely. Hilaire's gone.
I think it's a valid comment. To be fair, he was, Sorry,
Dice is on. Should we come back to you?
He's still there. Sorry.
Yeah. Have you got me?
Oh,
Dice
is
on.
Do you really want to talk about him? Yeah. Okay. I'll go and listen to him then.
Okay, all right.
We'll
come back. We'll come back to Gnome in just a minute. Gnome's going to go and listen to what gravelly voice old Dash has got to say about the game. Come on,
hang on. You sounded like the character out of who was it? Rainbow. Was it
Zippy?
Oh, bungle. Huh? Anyway,
I think that's harsh. I thought that was a pretty good one. Anyway. Impressions aside, and I don't think any of us is ever going to make a career out of impressions. Pinky. No, David Moyes making the point there that he wants a striker. I mean, we could have all picked that one out of the bag. But do you think that's a bit of an excuse, talking about COVID and the fact that not everyone's got a lot of money to spend? I think that's cover for the board.
As much as I like to cane the board at every single opportunity, in case people haven't realised that, I think it's a reasonable comment. The general point is with the board, they've never put enough money into the club, full stop. So the reality is, when COVID does come along, we're obviously not going to have enough money. That's the long and the short of it.
Sure.
But when Arsenal Football Club are having to borrow £120 million, from the government, the Bank of England club borrowing from the Bank of England, essentially. That tells you the state of football finance. And for us, match day income that we've lost this season would be probably somewhere 25, 27 million pounds. You add it to probably 7 or 8 million pounds from last season. You've got a 30 million pound hole there, which they plugged with a rights issue. But let's get it back to where it was. It was the disastrous transfer expenditure under Pellegrini, which David Sullivan sanctioned. We've spent a lot of money in the early part of the Pellegrini reign, And because of the way that Sullivan actually organises the club's finances, in the first season of a normal 3-year run of a manager, they get about 60% of the 3-year contract transfer budget. In year 2, they normally get about 30% of the 3 years chunk. And in year 3, when Sullivan wants the supporters to turn on a manager, they normally get about 10%. You know, if you actually look at it, when he had Pellegrini and before that, whether it was Allardyce and Bilic, he looks at it as, you know, he'll appoint a manager, and over a 3-year period, he'd look at it like that and say, right, in year 1, you can spend 60% of what you get over 3 years. And effectively, what David Moyes is having to do is make do with a bit of the 30% plus the 10% to actually run the team. What I suspect we'll get to is next season, there might be some more money available on that basis, provided the supporters are back in the ground. Whether or not David Moyes is still around to be the manager that gets to spend it is the debate. And still no news on a contract, and we don't know whether that's the chairman or the manager that is stalling on it. But it's, what I would say is, given the fact that he's had such limited funds to spend, for us to be sitting in 8th position, I think David Moyes is outperforming where he could expect it to be, and he's actually creating a real problem now for David Sullivan. So I've got a sneaking view that Sullivan doesn't particularly want to hand David Moyes the 60% of a 3-year slice of transfer kitty. I've just got the sneaking feeling that Sullivan would rather have a new manager in place and say, great stuff, Moyes kind of tidied up the previous manager's mess, and then he can say to a new manager, here's a chunk of money for you to go and spend. And I would love it, just love it, for David Moyes still to be there in September and actually get given a fair crack of the whip with a decent transfer kitty, and then maybe go and get a striker of a top draw quality. Because do we need one striker? Do we need 2 strikers? You know, do we need a new left back? Do we need a bit of a pass from midfield? So again, we're going to be in a position where I think we're probably going to need to go to the market and get 4 players in the summer. Never mind now, in the summer, there's probably 4 players you need to go and get, of which certainly a striker will be one. It keeps coming back to the chairman. Do we think it's COVID? There's a bit of it, but I think the biggest slice of the reason why the manager isn't getting the money is because the chairman just doesn't want to break the way he runs the club, which is on a 3-year cycle. And I think he's going to have a massive problem, because if we finish in 8th position, he's going to look mightily silly saying to a manager that has achieved that on a shoestring budget, I don't fancy you to have a go next year, mate. You know, so at the minute, I think Moyes is enhancing his reputation.
Yeah.
I think the chairman is absolutely cementing his reputation. That's for sure.
Very much so. And interestingly, a little birdie told me this week that Frank Lampard's situation is being keenly watched by our boardroom over at Chelsea. So just keep an eye on that one and see what happens. And talking about Moyes' future there, Frank, of course, you know, there's been a lot of question marks and doubts expressed over what he's doing at the Bridge. But yeah, very interesting. We'll see how that one develops. A little bit of a KUMB exclusive for you there, perhaps. I don't think that one's come out elsewhere at all. Rio, just before I go back to Gnome, I wanted to ask you quickly, I mean, are we back here where we were in sort of 85, 86, and a couple of times since? We're kind of potentially on the not I wouldn't say we're on the cusp of greatness, but we're on looking at possibly a real breakthrough here for West Ham, a chance to push this club on. We've said 3 points away from the Champions League zone, and here we are with another real opportunity to push this team on. I think it was Sam Allardyce most recently, whose team were in the top 4 at Christmas, and there was no investment in January. Mentioned 85, 86, of course, and going back further. There's been other times where the club's had a real chance to push on. Does this feel like another example of that for you? Or, do you think this is just the same situation for everybody, that, everyone's struggling at the moment, as Pinky said? Arsenal, of course, had to make that huge loan from the Bank of England. And what do you make of that situation?
Yeah, there's elements of both for me. I mean, I think the most recent example was 2015-16 where Bilic was in charge. We were so close to the top four then.
Yeah, of course.
In January, we didn't invest properly, did we? We bought season Emaniki in on loan. You know, we could have pushed on in that January window and pushed for the European place. And in the following summer, we should have built around Payet. And when we moved to the Olympic Stadium, we could and should have gone on to better things. But as is the West Ham way, we just collapse. We've done it 3 or 4 times lately on the cusp of greatness. I mean, this year is it's a difficult one to gauge, isn't it? Because of the whole COVID situation.
Yeah,
you're playing in front of empty stadiums. It's hard to gauge how much the effect of playing with no fans is having on the players. You know, we've been through this on numerous occasions that some players must, despite the fact it's a competitive match, it does feel like a training game for them. So it's difficult to gauge. But the pessimist in me, and with our current ownership, you just know this particular step away from being able to push on again is going to end in the same manner it has done the last few occasions. The fall from grace is just around the corner. The situation where the manager is going to be and his coaching team all without contracts in a few months' time.
Yeah,
we don't know if our crown jewel will still be here next season because bigger clubs are sniffing, you know. And once he goes, that leaves a huge gap in the centre of midfield. One that would be incredibly hard to replace. Again, we should be building a team around him, encouraging him to stay for a few seasons longer at least, you know, saying, Declan, you're the king of this particular domain. These are the players we're going to build around you. Push us on to greater things. But you just know for a fact that the ambition of the fans, the ambition possibly of the players, is not matched by those in positions of power. So you just know for a fact that this little excursion into we could be good is going to end up 8 months down the line into what the hell happened there again.
Yeah, it's kind of ingrained, isn't it, as a West Ham supporter? But who knows? You never know. It might be about to change. We can only hope, can't we? We can only hope. But West Ham, you know, in a really strong position, as we said today, after that 1-0 defeat of Burnley. Noma's been listening to the Burnley manager, Sean Dyche, who has just been interviewed by Amazon Prime about his team's defeat today. Nome suggested that he might, you know, say that he was a little bit aggrieved by what he saw, felt his side deserved more than, you know, going back up north with nothing to show for their efforts. Is that how it transpired?
Basically, yeah. Disappointed with the result. Lots more possession than is usual for an away team in the Premier League, and we'll keep doing what we can. I'll be talking to the owners to see what funds are available. Really, nothing much.
Yeah.
I was talking about Moyes earlier on, which is far more interesting. And the comments where we were getting onto the transfer window, and you said something along the lines of, is COVID an excuse? And I think it's a valid comment that the situation at the moment means that can't remember a window going on this long with so few transfers being made. COVID, plus there's also some administrative stuff with Brexit to consider these days. Whereas EU players were automatically allowed in, you've now got to look at whether or not they actually qualify for the appropriate documentation and rights to settle, that sort of thing. So there's all that going on. What he did say was he was asked about Declan Rice, and he said, how do the rumours affect you? We're hearing of bidding wars between Man United and Chelsea. And he said, well, we've had no contact from either of them. And he says, we don't want it. And he's very adamant that he doesn't want Rice to go anywhere, which is fair enough. So just remembering what else he said. He mentioned, I don't know if he mentioned Dawson.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's now had 4 clean sheets
Yes.
And he said, well, you know, we've got a lot of competition in those places. We've got Dieppe, Balbuena. He said even Cresswell plays across there when we play that way. And he said he's setting the standard. You know, he's got the shirt effectively. So he's pleased with Dawson, pleased with the resilience. He said overall he might have hoped that the second half we might have played a little bit more, as we were saying, perhaps in their half. But he was also, there was a joke he made about Antonio being made man of the match, which was the decision of Ali McCoist. And sort of Moyes gave a wry grin and said, McCoist, what does he know about scoring goals? Which obviously gave a bit of a laugh to everybody. So
who was yours, Gnome? If you had to pick, who would you have as man of the match? Because I didn't ask you this one.
I was Rio sort of stole my thunder. I thought I'll keep quiet. I won't mention him, so that I'll be the only one who mentions Declan Rice. But I was beaten to it. So okay. Antonio a very, very close second, and I fully take on board. Pinky's got a very good point in that not just the goal, but he kept the Burnley defence honest in a way that Haller never did.
Yeah.
You go and ask Tarkowski and me, not me, but me with an extra E, who they'd rather be playing against, you know, Haller or Antonio, and he'll get your answer. Yeah. So I'll give it to Declan Rice.
Okay.
Yeah, for the reasons I was saying earlier on. So
yeah, fair enough. So that's two nominations for Declan, one for Antonio. I mean, I think once again it's one of those games where I think we're fortunate to have quite a few potential candidates. I mean, I think I'd probably go for Dawson again for the second time in 3 games, purely on the basis that
third on my list.
Yeah, since he's come into the team, and I want to talk about this because it's a positive and it is exceptional for West Ham as well. I mean, 4 games, 4 clean sheets for West Ham since Dawson come into the side. I don't think there's any that's any coincidence. You know, he's coming and we were all kind of concerned, weren't we? This is the funny thing about football. You know, all the knowledge between us, all these watching games over the years, and all of us were concerned about Craig Dawson coming into the team, and it's been fantastic. It's done a really, really good job. I mean, we saw, I think, Gnome, we were looking at some of the replays on Amazon Prime of some really difficult situations that we faced. We spoke about that header. There was a ball swung into the 6-yard box where he was
incredible.
Yeah, he was going backwards, wasn't he? And he still managed to get it clear and avert the danger there. But just looking, actually, we talked about the match stats. Rio mentioned just before the final whistle that he wasn't aware of many shots on target. And that's actually borne out by the match stats, Rio. I mean, possession, West Ham 45 to Burnley's 55. West Ham 15 shots to Burnley's 10. But on target, West Ham only 4 shots on target and Burnley only 2 efforts on target. And I think Pinky made the point also that the goalkeepers hadn't really been tested, and that's borne out. But going back to the issue I want to talk about, the 4 clean sheets, 4 consecutive clean sheets, we think that's the first time West Ham have done that since 1985, 86. So 36 years, 36 years, fantastic stuff. Just looking at the XGs for the last 4 games, going back to okay, so I've only got the league games here. So the last 3 in the league, 0-0, the draw at Southampton. Southampton's XG for that game, 0.67. The Everton game, Everton's XG for that game, 0.37. And today, West Ham's XG, 1.73 to Burnley's 0.4. So that's astonishing. I'm imagining that Stockport's, which I don't have available because this is just for the Premier League, is going to be lower than that, lower than all those 3, because I don't think they had a decent effort on goal. But that's some turnaround, isn't it, Pinky? That incredibly low statistics in terms of what we've faced in the last 4 games. And who do you put that down? So I mean, I've mentioned Craig Dawson coming into the team, saying that can't be a coincidence, but Bonner as well has been absolutely brilliant, hasn't he? And Kufal or Sufal, however you pronounce it, and Cresswell as well. That unit has been absolutely incredible, hasn't it, over the past few games, and looking one of the strongest in the Premier League, you'd say.
I think if you look at a unit of, dare I say it, Rice, Souček, Ogbonna and Dawson, absolutely solid, rock solid. And I think Rice and Souček are covering a lot of ground to stop, people getting in behind the fullbacks. I think which is helping. So our defensive effort is excellent, and this is the unfortunate thing for the balance in the team and what our supporters are expecting. The price you pay for being that solid sometimes is you haven't got quite as many options going forward, and I don't equate it with parking the bus. I actually think it's good football to do that. Stopping the opposition scoring, I think, is one of the primary things you've got to do as a football team, because you don't see 5-0s and 6-0s that often in the Premier League. These are top teams. So for my money, I think the manager has looked at the players he's got and has gone, do you know what? With what I've got, first thing I'm going to do is make sure we're not conceding many. Why am I going to do that? Because I've only got one striker. So if we concede a goal, what's the odds of me getting 2? They're not great, and therefore the manager's got to set a team up to be practical, and defeats sap confidence week after week. You imagine the job that Sam Allardyce has got at West Brom at the minute. The win they got today against Wolverhampton Wanderers is massive. The difference that will make to belief. And when you're down there and you're losing games week after week, the losing mentality sinks in. That's how you get relegated. That's when you see a massive churn in your playing staff. And I'm thinking back to the last time we went down and we were in spirit-sapping defeat after spirit-sapping defeat. And then what happens? You have to then send for a manager that nobody particularly wanted, but who actually knew the score. And what he did was he actually ripped out all of the players who had been sucked into that losing mentality week after week and started from scratch again. That's what happens if you say, well, it's okay to run the risk of a 3-2 game every single week. Most of our lot would like that. Would say, yeah, we'd rather win 3-2. I'd rather win 3-2 every week. But the fact of the matter is, we haven't got the personnel available to the manager to get the 3. So we can't afford to give the opposition 2. So that's why if you play a 4-2-3-1, if you've got players of the caliber of Rice and Souček sitting in front of your back 4, that's how you're doing it. That's how you're tidy. A rock solid centre half combination with 2 players in front of them that are doing a lot of covering. We're solid. We're decent. I'm sorry, but what's wrong with that? I don't know.
No, absolutely. And this is, it all ultimately, I think, comes back to that question of substance over style, or, which you prefer, doesn't it? And I guess with all things, the answer, as with all things, the answer is somewhere in the middle. Gnome, I think, has to leave us I'm
afraid so, gents. Been a pleasure, and I'll catch up with you Tuesday night, I suppose.
Yeah, of course. Gnome, any final comments before you depart?
I'm happy. 3 points. Not upset at all.
Can't say fair on that. Thank you for your company and all your comments as always. Now, we're going to be wrapping up very, very shortly anyway, but Gnome, of course, has to skip off. He has a previous appointment that he has to attend. So, and then there was 3, of course, as they said. As I said, we are going to wrap up very soon. But yeah, Rio, I mean, come on. I know some people haven't been very happy about the style in which we're winning the games. 4 clean sheets in a row for a club, of West Ham's size and position in the Premier League. That's absolutely incredible, isn't it? And massive credit to and also I think Pinky made a very good point there. It isn't, of course, just about the defence. It's the shape of the whole team. Pinky spoke about Souček and Rice. The amount of times we saw there was some moments today where Angelo Ogbonna, we saw him pop up on the left wing in the box, and the play quickly changed. He was up the other end, and Souček, for example, or Rice was back there sitting in that in the hole in that centre half position, covering. Of course, it's also about the Bowen and Fornals, the tremendous work that they're doing to cover those full backs. And they used to call it defending from the front. I think they call it a high press these days. But, even Michail Antonio, the defensive work he does. So it is, it's not just about the defence. It is the whole unit. But what a fantastic achievement that is for Moyes and West Ham. 4 clean sheets in a row. And as I just pointed out, the XG stats, they're showing that it hasn't been a fluke either. None of those teams that we've played in the last few weeks, has been unlucky to come away. We have restricted them to a bare minimum of opportunities.
Yeah, most definitely. And you just got to look at where he was 15 months ago. Our players barely put a shift in. We was getting run ragged. Yeah. The amount of work rate we do, as you said, not just at the back, but in the midfield. Our attacking midfielders are putting in work rate, which is beyond belief at times. I mean, Jarrod Bowen, he's got quite a few plaudits on the forum tonight, but he's also got a little bit of stick about his decision making. Okay. But his work rate, and the same as Pablo Fornals, who's also been given a lot of credit as well for his 90 minutes sheer effort and engineering running. Yeah. We weren't doing this 15 months ago, which is part of the reason we were so soft, because we had no one working and harrying the opposition back line. So they was easily distributing the ball into midfield. They were tearing us to shreds at times. We just didn't look interested. But under the new coaching regime, we look twice as fit as we ever did. Twice as interested. And the results are there for everyone to see. One of my best friends said to me, last season, there's a lot of craft in the side, but not a lot of graft. And that's where we were struggling. It's gone the other way. We're picking up the points. The happy balance will come. As we've said, we need a little bit of investment, a little bit of work, and the balance between the two aspects of working hard and performing fluently will eventually come. But at the moment, we're doing the basics right. We're keeping clean sheets. We're working incredibly hard. We're matching teams in terms of work rate instead of falling way behind. We're surrendering a lot of possession, and we're picking up points galore for us, plus the clean sheets. So it's about striking that balance. And in time, that will come. We have the tools at our disposal. We just need augmenting.
You mentioned fitness there, Rio, saying that, it improved immeasurably since the Pellegrini era. How important is that to the team? And how much of a part is that playing in these improved results this season?
It's a huge part. I can't remember the stats on the top of my head, but in terms of goals conceded last season, we shipped so many in the last 15 minutes. It is unreal. How many points did we throw away from winning positions last season? I think it's something ridiculous, like 18, 20, something like that.
I think it was more,
We couldn't run for 90 minutes. We were struggling to run for 60. Now, we work from minute 1 to minute 90, minute 94. And the improvement and the points are there for all to see, I think Moyes said when he first came in his first spell, we need to work more. We need to work harder. We need to be fitter. It was a bit of a slow start for him in his first tenure, but he got us over the line. This time round, he's been afforded a lot more time at the helm. He's got his own coaching staff in doing the job for a longer period. And, in terms of fitness and work rate, it's a completely different side to what we had last season.
Yeah, very much so. Thank you, Rio. Pinky, do you go along with that? The improved fitness is having that palpable effect on the pitch?
Yeah, it's fitness, it's age profile. I touched on it earlier about having the energy in the right part of the pitch. You don't have to have centre backs that can do the length of the pitch in 11 seconds, provided you've got midfielders that can, if you get the drift. And I think we've seen a big improvement in our ability to compete over 90. But I think we're just doing it. I think the manager needs better options from the bench. Interestingly, I've got the Chelsea game on here now. I expect to see Giroud arrive at the London Stadium in the next 10 days on an 18-month contract. So I think at least he'll give some sort of an option to the manager if he does in fact arrive. But I think certainly, we're not getting rolled over, and I think that's half the battle. And we'd all love to see 2 or 3 goals every single week and shots peppering the opposition keeper and all the rest of it. Okay, but we just haven't got quite enough squad depth to be doing those sorts of things. And I say roll the clock back over the last half a dozen years and refer to today's game. When have we been in a position to do that against Burnley in the last 4, 5, 6 years? We haven't. So is the issue necessarily David Moyes? Sometimes you've got to say, well, the opposition get a say in how you play each week as well. And for us to be sitting where we are, with our points tally where we are, with a positive goal difference, I think it's okay. I think if I was marking David Moyes' school report, I wouldn't put him in the same category as Fat Tony or Whispering Ray, the lads I drink in the pub with, who are both deadbeats, but they are watching. What I'd be inclined to do is say he's doing well, but perhaps needs to step it up a bit in due course. Okay. Yeah, I think we're being harsh on a manager if we think he should be doing better with the tools at his disposal than what he's got. And he's got them fit, he's got them organised, he's got them motivated. You think back the last, spells of the Pellegrini era, when players weren't sure who was going to take the throw in, when players weren't sure who was going to take the corner kick. We all stood and watched that. Our however £1 million a season manager that we had, who's now disappeared back off to Spain. We were watching West Ham United teams who didn't know whose job it was to take a throw in or a corner kick. You don't see that under David Moyes. There you go.
Very true. Very true. Very well drilled. Very well organised. Very fit. And doing very, very well in the Premier League this year. As we said, West Ham, that win today, taking the Hammers up to 8th in the table, 29 points from 18 games. As I said earlier, that's just 3 points shy of the Champions League zone. It's also 3 points shy of third place Man City and just 4 points shy, as Pinky has rightfully pointed out, of second placed Liverpool. Just 4 points off second place. And with half the season almost gone. Fantastic stuff from David Moyes and his squad. And if only we could push on a little bit, that, as I said, this is the thing we keep coming back to every few years, if only. But we are in the middle of a transfer window. Who knows what it holds? Rio, let's, before we do depart, let's dive into the KUMB.com forum match thread just one more time and just have a quick look at what the Hammers are saying. Are they happy Hammers, or are they, slightly not so happy Hammers because of the style of football? What's the general consensus?
Again, the debate over style over substance is beginning to rear its head on the match thread. But I'd just like to point out a few of the comments that have been had. Chapo59 has put, poor decision making by the forwards nearly cost us today. We should have put this to bed much earlier. We look very good defensively. One and Dawson look a great pairing. And Kufal, definitely Kufal, is a superb player. Rice was his usual consistent self along with Souček. Benrahma needs some luck and also to lift his head at times and see the bigger picture. Bowen very industrious, but the final ball is not always good. Great win in a game that we usually draw or lose, onwards and upwards. Jack Hammers put, I thought it was a good performance, but our final product is somewhat lacking. Rice should have played in Benrahma. Bowen should have scored. Yarmolenko should have squared it to Antonio. Lots of other chances like Fornell's being blocked. Decent, but we're still lacking a bit. Another striker we are confident we can start instead of Antonio to adequately replace him from the bench, and we are golden. SH put, not easy on the eye, is it? Which Alf Gitt said, nor's the wife, but I wouldn't chop her in half though either. Profit marginal. He made Bowen our man of the match. We had 7 players out there who were comfortably better than either the opposite opponent playing against them or direct counterpart. Just beat one of our bogey teams in third gear, almost as if we know we're preserving our energy to go again the second half of the season. West London Hammer, 4 clean sheets in 4 for Dawson. Who would have thought it? Not a pretty win, but we should have been by much more, given that Bowen, Lenzin and Yarmo wasted chances. We were clinical when it mattered, though. An excellent 3 points, comfortable. We restricted their chances, and now we're locking up the table. Surprised he didn't sub Antonio, but he was fantastic, and he makes all the difference to this side. There's a lot of candidates for man of the match on the forum. As I said, Dawson's been given credit, or Bonner's been given credit. Declan Rice, naturally. Mikel Antonio. It's great to see that in a performance like that, which wasn't the most fluent, wasn't the most attacking, that 5 different players in that team have all been given a man of the match shouts by our members.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I was just going to add, we've had quite a few on the YouTube live chat as well, going through some of those candidates. Elaine Nelson, of course, I've got to mention Elaine, because if you remember, Elaine came on to us a couple of weeks ago and said that, since she'd been following us, West Ham hadn't lost a game. And Elaine's posted again tonight to say, am I your lucky charm, chaps? A 1-0 win for the Hammers after being told by the other half to listen to you and not watch on the TV. And she says, she adds, this is the 3rd win when I've listened to you. So, Elaine, keep coming in. Keep populating the chat forum and stick with us. So you clearly are a lucky charm. Just looking at some of your man of the match nominations, foregone conclusion says Dawson, kept Woods quiet, tough guy. Mark English, Ogbonna, man of the match for me. Hobo, Oggy, man of the match. Tankman, Oggy, definitely man of the match. That's interesting because we didn't touch on, we mentioned Ogbonna, but none of us actually went for him. Just reminding you of what the team here went. Pinky went for Antonio, Rio and Gnome for Rice, and I went for Dawson as our man of the match nominee. So backing up Rio, really, what you're saying there about, so many potential candidates for man of the match. Harry Clapham says, very much enjoyed watching Dawson calming and winding up Wood and Barnes. He's been superb. Tankman saying Antonio did a great job. And so there you go. Just lots of candidates, as we said, from the YouTube live chat. Pinky, we touched upon Sean Dyche, and I think you mentioned also Albion's really well. In fact, both Albions won today, didn't they? 2 very, very important wins in that battle against relegation. West Brom winning 3-2, I think it was, in the first Black Country derby for about 8 years. Obviously, as you'll be aware, a massive game up there, that one. And Brighton securing, I think it was a 1-0 win at Leeds as well today. And so that really adds the pressure on Burnley. Throughout the game, you were looking at the forum and keeping an eye on, is Up the Clarets, was it? I think it was the forum, Up the Clarets. And some very, very unhappy people. Sean Dyche, of course, was, a real link with a lot of clubs, linked with West Ham, of course, a year or so ago, but a lot of Burnley fans not happy at all. Is that still the case? I presume it is now at the final whistle.
It's absolutely the case. And what we sort of seen Burnley drifting in towards there, and certainly if their general support, are reflected in those comments on Up the Claret, they're bored of the football that Dyche is playing.
Mm-hmm.
They think he's sending out the wrong team, and it's kind of like, the 1-0 to the Burnley in either direction. They've grown tired of watching it, and it's up to them what they want to do with their manager. But I could pretty much guarantee you, with new owners, if they change the manager now, within a year, they'll be certainly heading towards the Championship, and within 18 months, they'll be in it. No question in my mind of that. I wouldn't want to watch Sean Dyche's teams week in, week out either, let's be honest. And if your sole objective is purely survival, then you wouldn't take that from anyone, whether it's Sean Dyche, David Moyes, or whoever.
Yeah.
I just want to talk about us for a second again, if I may.
Sure.
Here we are, 18 games gone. If the Fulham-Chelsea game stays where it is at the minute, which is 0-0 after 24 minutes, we will be 2 points ahead of Chelsea, 5 points ahead of Arsenal. Yeah? So tell me what we're doing wrong. Mm-hmm. Tell me what we're doing wrong. And you touched on Frank Lampard there and our board perhaps keeping an eye on developments in West London. look at the money Chelsea Football Club have spent on players. It's Pellegrini-esque in terms of some of the money they've spent. And for them to be 2 points below us at this point in time, there is a manager who's under pressure. That is for absolute certain. And on the basis that you spent that much money at Chelsea and sit 2 points below us at the moment, and our manager spent relatively little, why would we want Frank Lampard? I can see the attraction to Frank Lampard, because if Chelsea give him the heave-ho, where's his next gig coming from? You know, and talk about peaking perhaps a bit too soon. No, not for my money, not at this point in time. And that's even if we park all the sort of supposed history between him and our supporters, which, you know, if you're watching this, Mr. Sullivan, I think you would be unwise to ignore. Okay, so, you know, but you could choose to put some paraffin on the fire if you want. But I think I'd be looking for better than Frank Lampard's shown in terms of what he's capable of. So, you know, we're ahead of 2 London clubs and we're a point behind a 3rd club in Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah.
What more do we want?
Well,
and that's where I'd almost be tempted to leave my last word tonight, because I think we're doing okay. I think the manager is doing well with what he's got. I'd like the chairman to back him with more funds, but we are very much a work in progress. I think we are a team that's probably punching slightly above our weight this season, because we've spent our money wisely. We just haven't spent enough of it, or we haven't got enough depth in the staff. And that's where I see it.
I think, if I recall correctly, Pinky, you went for 8th or 9th as our projected final position. Eighth,
I think would be a good season for us. You know, look at the teams above us, and you've got to say realistically, you know, who are we going to displace between now and the end of the season? I don't think we'll displace Manchester United or Liverpool or Man City or Leicester or Everton. You know, Tottenham have always got the ability to sort of like have a wobble. Southampton, I think, under their manager, are very well organised. So you could argue of the teams above us, maybe Saints and maybe Tottenham, but equally you could argue of the teams below us, Chelsea aren't performing as they should do, and Mikel Arteta will be another one at Arsenal Football Club, who, you know, might be getting a few awkward phone calls from the people above him in the club's hierarchy saying, we know we haven't exactly backed you with huge money, Mikel, but this is Arsenal and we're wallowing behind West Ham United. Yeah. And so 8th, I think, would be good. 7th, I think, would be superb. Yeah, bearing in mind what's above us. And to do that, when your signings this year have been what? A right back for what, 5 million? Seriously. What do people expect?
Yeah. Hallelujah. I totally agree. Thank you, Pinky, for all your contributions this afternoon. Excellent stuff once again. Rio, the final word, I'm going to pass over to you then, as far as this afternoon's game has gone. As we said, West Ham 1, Burnley 0. The Hammers up to 8th in the Premier League, just 3 points off a 3rd place. What more do we want, asks Pinky. Do you want any more, or are you equally happy with what you're seeing?
Given where we are in terms of squad finances, Pinky's right. What do we want? No, we're punching above our weight, really. Even the teams below us and around us have invested more in the summer than we have. You know, and we've just sold a striker for £20 million, losing 25 million in the process. And yet here we are, 8th place, 3 points off the Champions League. Okay, it's not particularly pretty at times. We've gone to teams like Leicester and Wolves, and we played them off the park. So when we do click, it can happen. But in teams, against teams like Burnley, who traditionally, over the last 5 or 6 years, have put in a shift on us and played us off the park in terms of work rate, effort, and nullifying us, they've tactically outdone us. there was a shift today, and it's a welcome shift. You know, we've made more progress under Moyes in the last year than we did under Pellegrini, given all the money he got given. You know,
Yeah.
People got to kind of sit back and take stock of who's in charge, how they operate, and the miracle that Moyes and his backroom staff are doing. Because let's make no bones about it, it is pretty much a miracle, because we're being ripped asunder in terms of strength. We're getting little to replace the players who departed. And yet here we are in 8th place, our best position possibly, I think it's since the Bilic season, wasn't it? It's 5 years. 5 years, little investment since. We're doing all right. We're doing okay.
Great stuff. Rio, thank you as always for your contributions this afternoon. It's miraculous, says Rio. Didn't he call you Mario there for some reason? I don't know why. Rio says it's miraculous the job that David Moyes and his backroom staff are doing. West Ham, 8th in the Premier League, another home win, narrow home win, but it's a win nonetheless, up to 8th in the Premier League. 4 points off a 3rd place with just one game shy of half of the season complete. And as we mentioned, what we believe to be a 35-year record of 4 consecutive clean sheets for Moyes and his boys. It's all pretty good, really, if you think about it. You know, we've had worse seasons and worse games. We march on, we go on. It's another win. What can you say? Great stuff. Thank you to everybody who's joined us this afternoon on YouTube for our live stream. As always, it's great to have you here. We love reading your comments and all your contributions. Thank you. Do join us again for our next, is it Tuesday or Wednesday we're up next? Tuesday, isn't it? Tuesday? Is it Tuesday?
Yeah, Tuesday.
Tuesday. Well, thank you, Rio. We'll see you again in that case then on Tuesday for our next game. Until then,